Yeah, welcome in. Welcome back to another episode of the Format Podcast. This is not live. This is a special members only episode. Yes. What's up, members? Shout out to my guys. Shout out to Laker Nation, number one member of the channel. Shout out to my main man, Chief Sid Bubba, and the boys from Annapolis. Anchors away. Shout out to my main guy. It's not that serious, man. I appreciate you. And of course, Bruce from B-More. What's good, stupid? All right. So I owed you guys a show for a few weeks now. And so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to bring it, man. I got 3 topics here, as you can see. And, I got a lot to say. So we are definitely going to get right into it. But you know what time it is. I got to do my little spiel first, and then we'll get right into it. If you're watching here on YouTube, make sure you go ahead, click that subscribe, that like, that notification bell. Make sure you're kept aware anytime we drop new content on the channel. If you want the audio only version of the podcast, open up your audio podcast platform, hit the search bar, type in The Format Podcast, and we should come right up. If you enjoy the content as you listen, make sure you give us a like, a 5-star review, and drop a comment. All that stuff helps us rise in the algorithm, helps us find more sports fans, helps more sports fans find us. And write it down, put it in your phones, make a note of it. The Format Podcast is live Sunday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern. And finally, if you're really and truly enjoying the podcast and you want to help the show continue to grow, make sure you go ahead, click that join button, join the channel. We're going to have some exclusive content just for you. Yes. All right, let's get right to it, y'all. If you watch this show, obviously all of you do because you're members. You know that I'm a big fan of Rick Bucher. I like a lot of what he has to say in terms of, breaking things down. Obviously, he has covered the NBA since, I want to say the early 1990s. So, easily more than about 30 years, he's been covering the NBA on a daily basis. Obviously, he's been a columnist. He's been on TV. He's done it all in terms of covering the NBA as a sports writer. And he's that guy, right? And so I have a lot of respect for what he has to say. He's been around the league. He knows the league. He's generally fair about the league. He tells it how it is. And so I was listening to Rick Bucher on the Ball podcast. Check that out. Subscribe to it, of course, after you finish listening to this. But it's a really good show. And he had some good stuff to say about LeBron James today and a lot of the things that LeBron says. And realistically, if you listen to this, you will hear also a lot of the things that I have said over time and a lot of maybe some of the questions I have asked. So you know what we're going to do. We're going to play the clip. I'm going to go in and out, pause, and we're going to just, we're going to talk about it, man, because I definitely, when I heard this, I was like, oh, my gosh, like this dude, he hacked my computer, I hacked my phone or something because, we are almost completely in lockstep on this. So let's go ahead. Let's hear what Rick Bucher has to say about LeBron James' commentary and so on and so forth. Let's go.
I have a serious question for LeBron James fans out there. How do you reconcile all the nonsensical things that he says with your love and appreciation for him as a player or belief that he's the greatest player who has ever played basketball?
So we're stopping already. That's a question I often ask. Like, I ask LeBron fans all the time, like, this doesn't mean anything to you that this dude just sits here and lies to you? Like, the things that he says are so often and so easily debunked, but somehow, and you've heard me say it time and again, LeBron fans' minds don't work like regular people. They can completely just, push it to the side, completely ignore it, compartmentalize it and say, that's my king or whatever it is they say. But it is amazing. And we'll get into some of that stuff as we go on here with this clip.
I'll leave that last part aside. But for me, I ask because I struggle with reconciling my love and appreciation for him as a player and to a great extent as a person with all of the nonsensical things that he says. Or the fact that as he has gotten older, he seems to be dipping into that wacky grandpa stage a few decades early.
All right, so I digress from Rick Bucher here. I don't have love and admiration for him as a player. I can completely respect all that he's been able to accomplish as a player, but I can also put in the context of how it came about, right? And so some people are going to say, so what? He did it. It doesn't matter how it came about. Nah, not to me. Like, how you go about things is just as important as getting it done, right? There's honor, there's integrity, etc. Anyone who has children can understand that. And really, you don't even have to have kids to understand that. It's just like everything that gets done is not equal if it's not done, within certain parameters or if it's done a certain way, right? So yeah, but let's get back to it.
And I know that sounds like blasphemy for LeBron fans. How dare you say anything disparaging about LeBron? Which raises another question for me. Why is he alone above reproach? We all are open to criticism. And I would not critique him if it weren't for the fact that he invites it, or his fans do, by suggesting things that just don't size up. They just don't stack up with reality. This is
So that's another big question. Why is he the only one somehow that can't get criticized? Kobe gets criticized. Mike got criticized. Magic got criticized. Bird got criticized. Jerry West got criticized. Will Chamberlain got criticized, right? Why is it somehow only LeBron James is above criticism? Yes. Does he get criticized? Absolutely. But when you criticize him, people attack you ruthlessly, endlessly, relentlessly. And this is why, one of my things, I don't say it this much on this channel, but one of the things I've often said on Instagram and stuff on my posts when responding to people, I would always tell them, go wait by the mailbox. Your Clutch check is on the mail. I truly believe that Clutch is sending guys $50 a week to stand up for LeBron, because there's no rational reason why a bunch of people who don't know this guy should behave as if he's a family member, and they're so offended when anyone says anything about him they don't like, true or not. It's crazy.
This is the point at which he should become an elder statesman, and he's been the exact opposite. He should be someone at this point, at 40, with all that he's accomplished in the game, someone that you would look to for insight or perspective or wisdom garnered by experience. And I don't think anybody would ever say that that's what you look to him for. I'm convinced that part of his reason for doing this Mind the Game podcast is trying to impress upon people that he is that guy. But the truth is, he is trending very much the other way lately.
So the Mind the Game podcast, and we definitely have a segment on that coming up after this one. I said it from the beginning, right? That the Mind the Game podcast, even prior to it beginning last season with JJ Redick, what did I say about it? You can go back and check on this channel. I said that it's just going to be another propaganda arm for LeBron. I'm not saying you can't learn anything about the X's and O's of the game, because I did. I learned some terminology. I learned from some of the diagrams. Now, if you watch Detail with Kobe Bryant, the late, great Kobe Bryant, God bless the dead, before he died, he probably did it a little better. But I think the conversational nature of Mind the Game is what LeBron wanted, because that allows the co-host to be basically worshiping him and doing the glazing, and he can glaze himself as well. Like, it's crazy. And we'll get to it. I'll show you some examples of that. But yeah, definitely that's how Mind the Game works.
Punching holes in an already fairly ventilated credibility. Let's start with his interview a few weeks ago, in which he talked about both reporter Brian Windhorst and his reputation for being a flopper, among other subjects. I don't want to spend too much time on the Windhorst subject. I have as much respect for Brian as I do any NBA reporter in the business today. Let's leave that part at that. I know the difficult line he has had to walk as someone who has covered LeBron as a newspaper reporter in Cleveland, and especially now at ESPN, which is perfectly fine and in some ways encourages currying favor with the athletes that they cover. The commercials that you see of made-up scenarios where great athletes are shot working in the ESPN Bristol, Connecticut offices in various roles, a brilliant ad campaign, by the way, is the relationship the company now embraces for the sake of access, aka ratings, also known as revenue. Once upon a time, it was just an ad campaign. Now it's a mission statement. All the vehicles inside ESPN that covered sports in a serious way or a critical way are gone. There's no more outside the lines. There's no more the sports reporters. There's no more Mark Schwartz or Jeremy Schaap. And my guess is there are sports fans who don't even know who those guys are. Windhorst has taken great pains to be fair, but honest in his coverage and analysis of LeBron. But he has never, ever pretended to have a personal relationship with him.
Very interesting, because if we remember on the McAfee interview, LeBron was saying like, oh, it's just weird. Brian Windhorst is pretending to be my best friend. It's like, what? Are you serious? Like, I listen to Brian Windhorst a lot. I've read stuff on him. I think he's written 4 books on LeBron. So all of this stuff has helped LeBron in terms of his overall presence, media on and off the court, and helped him to grow into this billionaire that he is. Obviously, he's the main catalyst, right? The work LeBron himself has put in over all these years to be able to stay around, to play at a high level for so long. No question. He's the main reason. But to act as if he didn't get a tremendous boost from the media is absolutely absurd. And then to turn around and crap on the same media who helped to boost you, man, I don't like that at all. I thought it was super disingenuous and just, well, it's typical LeBron, right? I've always said that LeBron is a dude who will use you until you're no longer of use to him, and then he'll cast you aside. And we see it. We see it constantly.
I almost feel as if he's gone out of his way, in spite of the fact that they went to the same high school and his mom taught LeBron at one point, that he's gone out of his way to make it clear that they don't have a personal relationship. Do they know each other? How could they not? They went to the same high school. Brian has covered him since he came into the league practically. Brian never, publicly or privately, has tried to suggest that he has some sort of special relationship with LeBron. So for LeBron to say that it's weird that Brian pretends he's LeBron's friend is not only a patently false premise for anybody who knows both of them, it's such an unnecessary shot at someone who in no way deserved it. It's both mean-spirited and it's being a bully. To what end? This is not the first time I've had this thought. And for those of you who don't like politics and sports, this isn't a political statement. It's simply stating a fact.
All right, before we get into that, the Brian Windhorst thing is crazy to me, man. It really is. And what's the word Rick Bucher used just now, right? He said a bully. Now, remember, I said that about LeBron in the way he interacted with Stephen A., that he was a bully, right? And remember, what do we also know? That bullies never stand up to guys their own size, right? What did we hear Dwayne Wade say? That we've been telling LeBron for years that he got to stand up to people. He got to fight back, right? But when it was little Stephen A., he went and did that. So, again, Rick Bucher, right on top of things. He's telling it how it is. And realistically, he's telling us things, whether you're a LeBron fan or not. All you have to do, and this is what I always say about LeBron, you don't have to believe me. Just watch this dude. Go back and look at what his career's been all these years, how he interacts with people, how he behaves. It's not about my opinion. It's easily about what he has shown us. That's the biggest thing. It's what he has shown us. But now let's hear this very interesting analogy that Rick Bucher is about to make, intersecting politics and sports.
LeBron's method of operation is exactly the same as our current president. They tell lies that are so easily exposed by anyone willing to take 5 minutes of research or simply paying attention to current events that you wonder how they got the idea or the courage to tell them in the first place. The lies are so blatantly obvious that they are insulting to anyone of average intelligence.
Now, that's another thing. You watch this show, other shows I've done. What do I always say? I say, LeBron, other people might be stupid, but I'm not. And I'm offended that you think I'm not dumb to believe. Do you think I'm that dumb to believe what you just told me? I say it all the time. Like, he really thinks people are dumb. But there's a lot of people out there. Because what do I always do, right? When I'm dealing with the LeBron stuff, I point out the lies and I prove them, right? It's very easy. It's very easy. Most of the time, he contradicts himself. So it's easy enough to point out the lies. But yep, I mean, there are similarities. And realistically, I know some people will also get upset, say, oh, he ain't nothing like Trump. Okay, cool. But here's the real deal, right? Donald Trump's niece, was her name, Mary Trump. She's a certified, I think, clinical psychologist. And she has, obviously from a distance, because he's not her patient, but based on his behavior and based on her knowledge and experience, she has classified him as a narcissist. We have two people who are not members, but are regular viewers of our show, who are certified, clinical therapists and psychologists, who also, based on LeBron James's own behavior and what he has shown us, not what they think, what he has shown us and exhibited the traits of, have said what? He's a classic narcissist. I mean, there we go.
The two of them even recite imaginary conversations with people who supposedly confirm whatever myth that they're trying to sell. And I can only theorize, and I'm going to put my Dr. Phil hat on, I can only theorize that the reason is the same. There's an insecurity complex that creates a need to make themselves bigger than they actually are. I actually don't think it's all that complicated. In any case, LeBron's response to being labeled a flopper is another perfect example. In the interview, when asked why he's flopping all the time and if he's looking for the same advantage that Patrick Mahomes is looking for when he embellishes contact, LeBron said, I wish, because it was suggested that Holmes gets 15 yards anytime he embellishes contact. And LeBron said, I wish, because I literally, over the last 5-6 years, when everybody is claiming I flop all the time, I'm like in the bottom half of free throw attempts per game. Those are his words verbatim. He's in the bottom half of free throw attempts per game the last 5-6 years. Here's the reality, easily researched. LeBron James has never been anywhere close to the bottom half of the league in free throw attempts per game or for a season ever. Let me walk you through the math. there are 30 teams which are allowed to carry 15 players on standard contracts, another 3 on two-ways. That's a total of 18, which is 540 players, but we'll leave out the two-way players for this exercise. Let's go just with 15 players per team, 30 teams, that's 450 players. An average of around 500 players take at least one free throw in a season. But again, for the sake of bending over backwards to be fair as possible, let's just go with the number of players who take enough free throws to actually qualify for the free throw shooting title, which is roughly 260. Still with me, right? LeBron is one of 260 players who shoot enough free throws to qualify to be ranked by the league in free throw attempts per game. Is he in the bottom half of those 260 players? Well, half of the last 6 years, LeBron didn't play enough games to qualify. But we can still look at what he averaged for the games he did play and where he ranked overall. And here's the reality. Over the last 6 years, whether we include this year or exclude it and go back to the 2018-19 season, he has never been lower than 26th in free throw attempts per game. In order to be in the bottom half, he would have to be 131st or lower. He's never been lower, ever, than 26th. And 26th is for this season. That means that over the last 6 years, using only the most conservative number of players, 260, he has been in the top 10% of players in free throw attempts per game every season, every year in the top 10%. And if you go back over his entire career, he had a stretch of 10 years when he was in the top 2%, but he's never been lower at any time than the top 10% ever. And yet he has the mystical audacity to say, yeah, for the last 5-6 years, I've been in the bottom half of the league in free throw attempts. To suggest, by the way, that that's proof that he's not a flopper. But the reality is referees watch tape. And once you have the reputation of a flopper, they're no longer going to blow the whistle when you fall down or when there's contact, at least not at the same consistent basis. So why would he think that he could get away with telling everyone that for the last 5-6 years, he's been in the bottom 50% of the league when it comes to free throw attempts? Or why would he think that that would somehow be an argument to suggest that he's not actually a flopper? Again,
amazing, right? Why would he think that that would be an argument to suggest that he's not actually a flopper? This guy is, I'm trying to tell y'all, he thinks we're dumb. And I can hear Bruce right now. Oh, you hating. You just hating on the king, the alpha, the omega. Yeah. But just answer the question. Why would he think that? Why would he think that? And why would he tell us this knowing that the numbers are so easily debunked? Matter of fact, Bruce, I'm waiting for you in the comments because I know you're going to have a comment about this. I want you to specifically answer this question. How do you refute Rick Bucher, longtime award-winning NBA journalist? How do you refute him giving you the answers and breaking it down that LeBron James lied about being in the lower half of the NBA in free throw attempts? Bruce, I want your specific response on this in the comments because I know you got something to say. So I want to hear how you refute this. Let's go.
I can only theorize. 1, he seems to have a taste for pretending to be a victim. 2, he figures his followers, much like the other guy, will not only believe it if he says it, they will get angry and cry about how he's being unjustly treated because he said it. By the way, I realized something about the LeBron devotees who have dedicated their lives to trying to hoist LeBron above Michael Jordan as the greatest of all time, that they generally employ one of two tactics that expose the fact that they either never watched Jordan play or they know that they can't make a basketball-based argument for their guy. So they do this. This is their counter to any time you blow a hole in their statistical or analytical or personal accomplishments between the two.
And it's real easy to blow a hole in that. But you'll hear what Rick Bucher is going to say. And I know this is true because I deal with it on a regular basis.
Try to discount either A, who Jordan competed against, the old plumbers and carpenters line, or B, they impugn anyone who has seen both Michael and LeBron play and favors Michael by calling them old heads who are just romanticizing the past.
I never heard
can't let
anything
go
like that.
of the past. Aside from neither of those things being true, certifiable or otherwise, it shifts the conversation away from assessing their actual games or accomplishments. Because here's the reality. If it looked like Jordan was competing against plumbers and carpenters, it's because he made them look that way, not because they were literally tradesmen or that they were that severely inferior. He was just that much better. When Jordan was playing, no one, and I mean no one, debated who the best player in the league was, ever. And there were tons of Hall of Famers. When he ducked out for 2 years, Hakeem Olajuwon became that guy. Hakeem Olajuwon, in my mind, the greatest center that we've ever seen, whether I've ever seen, just because I didn't see Wilt and I saw Kareem at the end. So If you want to go with either of those, you want to go with Kareem, that's fine. In terms of the time that I've covered the league, Akeem Olajuwon was as good as any I've seen. Watching him absolutely take apart a young Shaquille O'Neal in the finals sealed the deal for me. It's one of those times you just go, I can't imagine anybody. I have not seen anybody else do what he did to as great a player as Shaquille O'Neal. And he undressed him. Also undressed David Robinson once upon a time. After Robinson went out of his way to win the scoring title. Those are the guys that I like, by the way. When you do something that's for a statistical reason, and I like David, but that was just so he could say he had a scoring title. When you put the numbers ahead of the game and you have somebody who respects the game to the point to say, don't you think for a second that your statistics are going to mean that you are better than I am? And then,
quick question. Do any of you think that LeBron puts numbers ahead of the game? I really do. And you've heard me talking constantly about how LeBron is trying to build the paper man for being the greatest player of all time. I absolutely believe he puts the numbers over the game. I think that his emphasis and desire for statistical accumulation is beyond winning and beyond anything else, because he knows that even if he doesn't win, his fans and the media are going to let that go past as long as he keeps putting up these numbers. And I definitely agree with Rick Bucher here about certain guys who put statistical achievements ahead of the game. And I think LeBron is probably the king of doing that.
And they go out and they make you pay for that. That's my kind of player. And that's the kind of player that Michael Jordan was. Now, this whole idea about old heads romanticizing or being stuck in the past isn't a slight. Appreciating the past takes effort because it's a natural assumption to think that everything today is better because it generally feels so much easier.
So here's the thing, right? That to his point, and he's going to break it down a little more here, but appreciating the past does take effort, especially when you're dealing with sports, because you got to go do the research, right? You may have to go watch the film. You got to check the numbers, but you have to try and understand the context of the numbers, how the numbers were gotten, right? Because you can't compare 30 points a game in 1990 to 30 points a game in 2025. It's just the 30 points are earned a completely different way. Notice I utilize the term earned, right? Because today you can get 30 because guys have the green light, shoot 10 threes, get hot. That's 30 easy, right? There's not a lot of rim protectors, right? So you can get 30. You beat your first man, you go straight to the rim, you boom on somebody, or you may not boom on anybody at all. You may just boom on an empty rim, right? The defense is so much less demanding, so much less physical, etc. So it is easy to score. We know that. We know it's easier to score. And I know that you got some people listening, Bruce, who are going to say exactly what Rick Bucher said. I'm trapped in the old days. I'm old head, blah, blah, blah. He's going to say it's not true that it's easier to score today, but it's absolutely a fact that it is. And we know. And just another reminder, anybody who wants to argue that it's not easier to score today, just Google Stu Jackson NBA rules changes, and you will hear his commentary on how they deliberately changed the rules to favor the offense. When he made those comments, he was, I believe, vice president of basketball operations for the NBA. So just, keep it there. All right, back to the commentary by Rick Bucher.
Age offers perspective. Time provides the chance for different experiences, and different experiences help us understand the true range of what can be accomplished. In a lot of ways, we've progressed, and in some ways we haven't. I hear way too many LeBron fans who claim everything is better today. Some things are, not everything is, in the game or outside the game. But this idea that anyone who has Jordan as the greatest of all time does so because they can't let go of the past tells me you really don't have a case. You can't argue with me because you literally don't know as much as I do, because you haven't seen or experienced what I have. Doesn't have anything to do with intelligence. I don't say that to think that I'm smarter than somebody else. I've just seen more. So I've learned more. Besides, there's plenty of stuff in my past that I've let go of for a newer or younger or more improved version. Just because I can see LeBron is not doesn't mean I'm anti-progress. Can't begin to tell you all the new habits I've developed or advances I've embraced.
Exactly.
When I was a kid, we still use typewriters. I'm thankful I don't have to write on the first computers, much less a typewriter or a word processor. By the way, those first ones were called Trash 80s. I think it was TS-80.
So real quick, he's referencing the first computer. I'm an IT guy. Did that in the military, and I've done that in the civilian world as well. So I say that to say, quick correction, it was actually the Tandy TRS-80. That was the model, and they didn't have discs back then, so they used cartridges the size of like Nintendo 64 cartridges, and as well, they didn't have monitors, so you would connect it to a TV via coax cable, and that was how you saw what you were working on. But yeah, Tandy TRS-80s was crazy back in the day.
but we called him Trash 80. I was a huge fan of the Big Red Machine growing up in Cincinnati as a kid, but I wouldn't take anyone on those teams over Shohei Ohtani as far as an all-around player. Those are just a few quick personal examples. And let me be clear about something. I struggle way more with reconciling what LeBron says than anything else. And he seems on a mission to say a lot of things, particularly of late, that are just inflammatory. And why at this point in his career? What is to be gained by picking fights with players of previous eras, entire eras, or casting aspersions? You know that his suggestions or his perspectives are bad when he compliments someone and that player wants nothing to do with the compliment, as Giannis Antetokounmpo did when LeBron said that Giannis would score 250 points if he played in the 70s. Such an outrageous statement. Even Giannis found it outlandish, saying it's not fair to compare eras. Made a joke out of it. He said, yeah, the only thing he got wrong was it wouldn't be 250, it'd be 275. And then immediately said, hey, I'm just joking. It's not fair to compare eras. And that if he played then, he'd play the same way they played in the 70s. How is a 30-year-old Nigerian who grew up in Greece have a better perspective on the NBA than a 40-year-old who's spent his entire life in the U.S.? Maybe because he's a Nigerian who grew up in Greece and now lives in America, thereby giving him a far more well-rounded perspective. It's also honestly weird to point to Giannis's offensive game, which is, let's face it, still rather limited. It must be, I got to say this, it must be truly exhausting for LeBron fans to defend him. I mean, saying Giannis would average 40 or 50 would have been outrageous enough, but at least it would have been within the realm of possibility.
So I've often thought about that. Like, how do LeBron fans do this? How do they constantly defend this dude at every turn? But then I realized it must not be exhausting at all, because they do it with such fervor, right? It's almost like religious level zealotry. I've never, and I say it all the time, I've never seen anything like it. I mean, you've seen some of the callers to the channel. If you follow my Instagram when I post reels, you've seen some of the commentary. You've seen some of the comments in YouTube. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. And it's not about trying to attack LeBron, right? My whole thing is the truth, right? If I'm wrong and I said something that's not true, I admit it, no problem. But when it comes to LeBron, there's so much lies circling around this dude, whether it's lies about what he is, lies about what he isn't, lies about what he's done, lies about what he said, lies other people have said about him. There's so many lies that circle around this dude. So I'm all about the truth. And that's what I try to deliver. But I'll tell you, it's absolutely exhausting for me. I can't understand how it isn't exhausting for I guess I do understand that it's not exhausting for LeBron fans, because they do it with so much fervor.
Remote as it might be, saying he'd score 250 is just flat out insulting, as if Giannis would be playing against elementary school level competition. Like, why do that? Why do that? Why say that? Why suggest that about your predecessors, the people that forged this league and forged your opportunity to become a billionaire? I suppose a LeBron fan would say, well, he's just punching back. And to that I say, okay, but you're 40 years old. You're supposed to be above that, both in age and accomplishment. Mm-hmm. It's also kind of astonishing because it doesn't reflect a real grasp of who Giannis is or what the 70s were. It suggests that Giannis's supreme athleticism is what would set him apart, as if his athleticism is somehow greater than Wilt Chamberlain's. Now, right. I didn't see Chamberlain play, but if you just look at his body of work and all that he did, you would all the athletic things he did beyond basketball and then what he did in basketball, you would never dream of suggesting that Giannis's scoring gifts are 2.5 times greater than Wilt's.
All right, so real quick, Wilt Chamberlain in college, All-American in volleyball, All-American, of course, in basketball, All-American in track and field at Kansas when Kansas was in the old Big Eight, held multiple track and field records. I think high jump, triple jump, broad jump, 200, 400 meter hurdles, I think 400 meter sprint. I want to say he ran like a sub 10.5, which is crazy at his height, a sub 10.5. What do you call this? A sub 10.5 100 meters. So, I mean, Wilt Chamberlain was an absolute freak. Also, when it comes to his post NBA career, he was a professional volleyball player, and he's also in the Volleyball Hall of Fame. So there's that. So Hall of Famer in 2 different sports, All-American in 3 different sports in college, and obviously record holder in multiple different events in track and field.
Seeing as Wilt scored 100 in a game, LeBron is saying Giannis would score 2.5 times that. Had LeBron said Giannis would be Bill Russell in the 60s or 70s, then it still would be insulting, but at least there would be a line of logic, because Giannis's defensive abilities are far and away the most translatable talent he has if we're talking from generation to generation.
Okay, so there we go, man. I think that Rick Bucher did a fantastic job breaking that down. Again, as you guys can see, I'm clearly a Bucher fan. I respect him a great deal as a journalist. I respect that he almost always tells the truth. I think he always tells the truth, despite the fact that I don't always agree with what he has to say on certain subjects. But just overall, man, he's the real deal. And again, I'm super impressed, and I love the way that he put that together. And that's why this was just something that I felt like I had to share with you guys, So yeah, so those were my thoughts on the Rick Bucher piece. And I wanted to definitely get in here, and I wanted to drop that, and I definitely wanted to give my thoughts on it. And again, I know that Bruce is going to be very unhappy with this, but I would challenge him, along with the earlier question I posed. I would challenge him with a second one. Once more, tell me one thing in that video or in my commentary, one thing so far that I've said or that Rick Bucher said was a lie. That's the key. At the end of the day, Bruce, tell me one thing that's a lie. That's what I want to know. I don't think you can, but if you can, I would love to hear it. So yeah, we'll go from there. All right, let's move on to the second topic, and that is Mind the Game Season 2. And so we know, obviously, Mind the Game is supposed to be a show that provides an opportunity for people to learn X's and O's, and I would say more advanced concepts when it comes to basketball, right? From a guy in LeBron James who wants us all to believe that he is a basketball genius and a savant. And, that's cool. Clearly, he's an intelligent basketball mind. I don't know if I go as far as to say that he is the genius and the savant that people want us to believe he is. I'm not going to say that he's not. I'll say I'm not going to go as far as, some people do when they talk about just how brilliant his basketball mind is. But with that, he has a new host for season 2, right? And that is he in the Hall of Fame yet? If he's not in the Hall of Fame yet, he will be very shortly. Steve Nash, point guard, most known for his time with the 7 Seconds or Less Phoenix Suns, as well as with the Dallas Mavericks. He also played with the Lakers. So if he's not in there, he will be. He's a top 5 assist guy all time, Steve Nash. Really good player. So they're on there to talk some X's and O's. But if you remember last year and I mentioned this already, I felt like the Mind the Game pod was just another opportunity for LeBron to continue to spread his own propaganda. And did I learn some things? Yes, I learned some things, and I'm always open to that. But again, the conversational nature of the show just allows for, the host to say, oh, LeBron this, LeBron that. Oh, LeBron, you're so great, LeBron that. And for LeBron to say, yes, I'm so great. I've done this, I've done that, right? Remember last year we were introduced to the fact that LeBron was supposedly flipping plays in his head at 8 years old, right? So, what are we going to do, right? But we've got some sound from Mind the Game. What is this? Mind the Game episode 1 of season 2. So we're going to get right to that. It's not quite as long as the Bucher sound, but we're going to get to that. And you already know how I do. I'm going to give my commentary. So I think it starts out immediately with LeBron just displaying his typical hypocrisy and his typical disregard for the listener in saying things that really have you like, what is this dude serious? But let's hear it. Let's hear it. All right, guys, here we go.
And the system's not set up for kids to learn the same way, whether it's AAU, whether it's, the way I'll put myself in this category. My generation of parenting, we protect our kids too much.
Yeah.
You got to let them fail a little bit. Now, the kids mean everything to the AAU program, not the AAU program.
And if they don't like it there, then they go somewhere else.
So you already hear him. First of all, why is LeBron saying, yeah, when Steve Nash says we protect our kids too much? Why is LeBron agreeing with that? He's the prime example of this, but we'll continue. And then LeBron has already started the foolishness by saying, and if they don't like it there, they go somewhere else. Interesting. Let's carry on.
If they don't like it there, they go somewhere else. Like it's
And NIL, right?
NIL, yeah.
So can a coach be hard on you? Like
Right.
I would have never made the league if it wasn't for my high school coach, my college coach being hard as hell on me.
Yeah.
You know, that made me tough. That made me be able to suffer, to fail, to get back up, to keep going, to keep believing.
Why does LeBron keep agreeing with Steve Nash is saying? He does not like to be coached hard at all, right? Every coach that really tried to ever hold him accountable or coach him hard, other than Tyronn Lue, and I guess, well, it was too late by then, but every other coach like who tried to do that and didn't just bow to his will, he got them fired. So why is LeBron saying, why is he agreeing with Steve Nash's commentary on coaching guys hard? But let's continue.
Because they'd roll me, right?
Yeah.
They roll me. And so that's a hard thing for our kids. Like there's very few environments nowadays that have that where we let them struggle, right? I think it's so appropriate challenges.
So I was so humbled and appreciative, like when Bronny wanted to stay at his high school for 4 straight years.
Yeah.
Even he could have went other places and maybe even got better opportunities or be able to do whatever he wanted to do with the game or whatever. And he stayed at the same high school for 4 years. And our youngest son did as well.
I can see why LeBron would be so humbled and appreciative that somebody that Bronny stayed in the same place for 4 years, right? Now, in fairness, I've always said I give LeBron credit everywhere he's been. He's finished his contract. He's never forced to trade. That said, he's acting like he didn't move on as soon as he had that opportunity, man. Come on. We got to stop this. We got to stop this. But carrying on.
Because of parenting, because of some things that was happening at the school that we didn't like, we kind of made him transfer in the summertime. He wanted to stay, and then ultimately he came to us and said he was not happy with the places that we sent him to, and he ended up going back. And now this is his senior year, and basically he spent all 4 years at the same high school too, and that means something. Like you're not like running away from adversity. You're even though things might not be going your way, you able to say fuck it, man. Like okay, I'm here.
Yes,
I've laid the groundwork, and okay, it's not going well for me here, but this is not even the real world. What if it doesn't work out for me in the real world? I can't just like pack up and just leave.
Is this dude serious? See, this is what Rick Bucher was talking about in the last segment. He says these things that make you think that he believes that we are all disconnected from our ears and our brains in terms of what we hear from him, what we see from him. In the real world, if I don't like something, I can't just pack up and leave. Is that not precisely what he did with the decision? Is that not precisely what he did with the Miami Heat when he was done with them? Is that not precisely what he did with Cleveland the second time? Like, this dude can't be serious in the stuff that he says. This is why I'm always so astounded when I listen to this guy talk, and not astounded in a good way, like, listening to a history lecture by Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, God bless the dead, but astounded in a way like this guy really thinks we're all stupid.
I have to be able to stick through it and work through it. So,
But those are values that start at home. Right? Like they value community, they value character, resilience. Like they didn't want to leave their teammates. Like that stuff matters, and I think that's important. As a value for parents, but also like as a community.
Yeah, for sure.
We can do better. Let's talk about these Lakers.
Let's do it.
Let's talk about these Lakers. Look, this. You guys won a championship a few years back now.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's fair to say, but felt like the project, if I can call it that, was getting a little stale. All of a sudden, you guys make a huge trade. You get one of the greats already at 25, nearly 26, 5-time first-team All-NBA, Luka Doncic.
Right.
Amazing player. Exciting, of course. But I'd like to know from you, like, what excited you about getting to play with Luka?
Because he plays the game how I've always wanted to inspire the generation to play the game. It's like it's nothing predetermined. It's if you have 2 guys on you, there's a numbers game.
Right.
So it's interesting that he says there's nothing predetermined. And I'll say this, I guess we can look at this 2 ways. Nothing predetermined has to speak to the mindset of your players and their ability to understand what's going on the floor, or at least the very least your leader, your best players. And also it could speak to, on the flip side, an inability of your best players to play within a real system, right? Because if there's nothing predetermined, they could basically just do what they want to do. I don't know if LeBron kind of gave himself up there and to some extent Luka by accident, but that's one way to look at it. Now, if you look at when Kobe talks about, when he references playing in the triangle, He says, okay, if we do this, we know this is going to happen defensively. We have an answer and a counter for that, right? So playing within a system, one, develops the individual players within the system to do those things within the system, right? Develops their individual skill sets. Also, playing within a system allows you, when you run certain things, to dictate what the defense will do, and then for you to move off of that for the best opportunity. And this is why the whole business of what LeBron just said of nothing predetermined is why you often end up in so many of his systems, list systems throughout the years, with guys just standing in the corner waiting on the kick out to shoot the three. And D Wade even talks about that, saying when he was in Cleveland, this is why he decided to come off the bench, because when he's in the starting role, he's not just sitting in the corner waiting for the three with 3 seconds left on the shot clock, and then he's got to put that up, right? Now, this is not my opinion. This is Hall of Fame shooting guard, top 5 all-time shooting guard, Dwayne Wade saying this. So I already know, oh, you just hating on Bron, you lying, you making stuff up. No. D Wade said that, okay? And I believe I played that on a previous show. So real quick, here's the thing, right? I keep referencing the things that I say, and I keep referencing the evidence that I use. And the reason for that is it can't be said that I'm lying and making stuff up just because I'm hating on Bron. This is why I use stuff that comes from media members, more plugged in, way more plugged in than myself. This is why I use stuff that comes from former teammates. This is why I use stuff that comes from opposition, so that when I say these things, nobody can say I'm just making it up just to hate on Bron. But let's continue.
If you have the advantage, and if it's a guy that that can't guard you, or you're able to beat him, and then the guy traps the box, or another guy sinks, I'm able to make the passes and make the reads before they happen.
Right.
And I've always loved the players that breathe so much confidence into his teammates that make them believe that they're actually better than what the fuck they really are.
Yes.
You did that. Luka has done that for 7 years. Chris Paul did that when he was down there in New Orleans and doing that for that team down there in New Orleans. I've been able to do that with a few of my teams. I mean, I don't go to the NBA Finals in 2006 with that team if I'm not able 100%. To make them believe that they're greater than what they are.
Yeah.
So I really disliked the way he worded that. I don't go to the NBA Finals in 2006 with that team if I don't make them believe they're greater than what they are. Maybe there's some truth to that, but the way you said that, no other all-time great would have said that way. This is what I talk about when I speak about the lack of humility or the fake humility, right? He definitely could have worded that, in a better way, right? He probably could have said something along the lines of, let me think quickly here. He probably could have said something along the lines of, man, our NBA Finals run in 2006, 2007 was such an incredible run with that group of guys. They all played out of their minds, and I felt like, as a leader on that team, it was my responsibility to help to lift them to the levels at which I knew they were capable of playing. You see how that sounds a whole lot different than I don't get to the finals in 2006 if I don't make these guys believe they can do what more than they can do. You see how different that sounds? So this is what I'm talking about, like the fake humility. He wants people to believe he's humble. He's nowhere near humble, right? It's not there. But anyway, let's continue.
And just give them that confidence.
It's a great point, because I think people understand you make your teammates better, but making them believe is a whole other thing, because you can.
So real quick, here's another thing. It's a narrative that LeBron James makes his teammates better. We can go down the list and watch what guys were able to do production-wise prior to his arrival in places, and we can also watch what they did post playing with him, right? Larry Hughes, I think, averaged 20 2 years before playing with LeBron in Washington, 18 the year prior to playing with LeBron in Washington, and then his numbers dropped off when he played with LeBron. I think it got down to like 14, right? And then when he left, his numbers increased again. We could talk about Carlos Boozer going from 15 and a half playing with LeBron, and then 19 a game over the next, 6 seasons, as well as 2 All-Star game appearances in Utah after playing with LeBron. We can talk about the gigantic jump for what's my guy's name? He's in Toronto now, Brandon Ingram. I mean, we can really go down the list of guys who got significantly better after playing with LeBron. I think it's a real narrative that LeBron makes guys better. At the very least, he negatively impacts the production of most of his teammates. So we got to look at that. And again, I know, you just hating, old head hater, hate on LeBron. Wake up every morning, you hating on LeBron. Okay, well, prove me wrong. Tell me where I lied. Again, this is very simple. If you guys want me to stop saying this stuff, just prove that I'm lying. Too easy.
spray the ball around the gym and make people better.
Right.
But to give them that belief that like, no, what I do is important and valued and going to help our team win. Like that's a different
and it makes them ultimately, they would do anything for you. They went through a wall for you.
But what I would say is that watching you play early, it's been fascinating. And I'd like to start by talking about two of the greatest point forwards of all time, right? Two guys that can dominate a game with the ball in their hands, scoring, passing, rebounding, whatever they want. Two computer processors, right? But you can't both have the ball. Right? So what I've been impressed with is, and Luka too, and I think you started down this path with Austin in that you started empowering him. You started like picking more spots, saying like, I don't need to control everything. As we feel in the heart of our career, you feel like we can't lose. I can't give the game away. When it comes down the stretch, I'm going to make every decision. Right? So empowering your teammates is important, especially when you're near 22.
Absolutely.
Right? So what I've been impressed with everybody, but in particularly you, is your ability to be a spacer.
You know what? In fairness, I got to say that too. I've been impressed with it too. And shout out to Laker Nation. He told me that LeBron and Luka were going to be able to figure out how to play together. Shout out to Chief Sid Bubba. He said it. Shout out to Bruce. He said it. I don't think I had that discussion with It's Not That Serious. But the point I'm trying to make is I was one of the main ones banging the drum that there was no way those guys would be able to work because they were so ball dominant. LeBron especially, I didn't think that he could figure out how to do it without the ball. But hey, I was wrong. Hear me, Bruce? I was wrong. And I have no problem saying that. Y'all already know if I'm wrong about something, I'll admit it. But yeah, no, LeBron has done a really good job. Now, that doesn't mean he's always moving or doing something. There's a lot of times you see him, he's just standing on the wing or he's, doing this thing. I don't know what that thing is. Are his hands sweaty? Is he trying to dry his hands? I don't know. But the point is he has done a really good job in terms of playing without the basketball since the arrival of Luka. And that really surprised me. So credit due to LeBron for that, man.
A cutter, a screener, a short roller, a quick decision maker.
Absolutely.
Like that to me is where your team offensively can reach an incredible height and not think back and think, why did we even think like two primary ball handlers? Can you expound on like how you are approaching this process?
I'm very smart when it comes to the game of basketball.
That's
all right, so there again with the fake humility, right? He didn't even attempt to be humble there. Well, I'm very smart when it comes to the game of basketball. He talks like he's the only guy that has any basketball IQ, and it's really, really frustrating. I'm very smart. Like, would you ever have heard Mike or Magic or Larry or Isaiah, four of the smartest basketball minds of all time, talk like that? But he wants to be lumped in with these guys, but he doesn't understand like the PR part of this thing. But look, man, he's got a right to say it if that's how he feels and if people believe it. But this is what I talk about when people say, oh, he's humble. No, he's not humble. And we get example after example after example. Carry on.
Question.
No.
The habits, right? It's not the intelligence. I know you see it. The habit of saying like, I'll be a cutter.
Yeah.
I'll be a screener. I'll be a space. Let me just
will be when I know that it's for the betterment of the team and for ultimately for us to reach our rim. I'm able to adapt to whatever position that needs to be done. And in this case, understanding how great Luka is, how on the rise Austin is, I can do things that affect the game still that benefits our team. And like you said, being able to come up and set a pick and roll where it's a switch league, and but to be able to pick and slip or pick and hit the short roll. Now, what I do best is even more unlocked. So you're giving me a pocket pass, and now I'm playing the 4-on-3 game.
Right, 100%.
I'm playing the 4-on-3 game where I have, I've gotten the ball from Luka in the pocket or AR in the pocket. Now I get to read and decide what these three defenders are going to guard me with the ball, two guys in the corner and a big and a dunker or small and a dunker. I'm going to pick you apart, instead of always having to be at the head of the play. And now all eyes are on me and it's a 5-on-5 game. Being, when Luka's ability to manipulate a defense.
Distort the defense.
Yeah, if you put two on him and now when the ball is swung to me and I'm going against a closeout, which is it doesn't happen much, in my career.
Staying home.
Yeah,
for 22 years.
Right, for 22 years.
So it's funny when he says when I'm going against a closeout, it doesn't happen much in my career. The reason why is because no one respected his jump shot for all those years, right? No one respected his deep jump shot, which has gotten just so much better in the last couple of seasons. And also, if you close out on LeBron too hard, he can put it on the floor and go right past you, right? For the bulk of his career. Maybe not quite as much now, but, you know, he was so explosive off his first step. So you couldn't close out hard, pause, the way you're often taught to in basketball.
To get eyes on someone else for a change, and then I'm catching it on the backside with a live dribble, or I'm cutting through traffic. You know, it's.
But like one of the highest forms of intelligence is also knowing what your sacrifice needs to be.
Yeah.
Right. And it's an insult to you, but like there has been examples in our league where great players playing with other great players like to your turn, my turn.
Yeah.
Right. Immediately you were bought into. I'm not just standing over here in the parking lot waiting for Luka to do his thing. I'm going to eat off of him, and I'm going to create for him.
Yeah.
But in fairness, when you watch the Lakers play, you do see him doing that a lot. Now, as I mentioned earlier, he has proven me wrong, and he is doing a lot more moving without the basketball, cutting, screening, etc. So yes, he's doing a lot better job than I ever expected playing without the basketball. But there's still a lot of times when he's just kind of standing there hanging out, as does Luka when he doesn't have the ball. So yeah, those are my thoughts on season 2, episode 1 of Mind the Game podcast. You know, I didn't feel like going through the whole thing, but I did listen to the whole thing. I didn't feel like going through the whole thing with you guys, but you know, as usual, it's just another LeBron propaganda tool. But again, there are some good stuff in there and some good concepts. Although if you really want to know, like, it's probably better to watch Detail with Kobe Bryant, because you're going to get less of the propaganda and more the basketball. All right, so let's move right to the last topic, the final topic, I should say. And we're going to talk about BJ Armstrong, who is a regular contributor on the Hoops Genius podcast, always has a lot of great stuff to say. And if you remember, I've played different clips from him previously, and he's going to talk a little bit about this whole business of LeBron saying that Giannis could have scored 250 points in an NBA game in the 70s. Now, again, I'm going to give LeBron some credit here. He couldn't possibly believe that Giannis would score 250 points in an NBA game, right? The greatest scoring output ever is what? 100 points. And then, of course, the late, great Kobe Bryant's 81. And so, you know, 100 was that hard to get. There's no way anyone's scoring 250. But that said, what LeBron is trying to do is say that today's athletes today are so much better than the athletes of the previous generation, blah, blah, blah. He's pulling that move, right? And we know why he's pulling that move, right? Because, you know, he is kind of regarded, not by me, but as the preeminent basketball player of his generation. And as such, if this generation is the best and he's the best of the generation, then, you know, by default, he has to be the greatest basketball player of all time, which, again, you all know I don't believe. But that's what he's doing. He thinks we're all dumb, but, you know, okay, cool. So anyway, what I want to do, even before I get into the commentary on BJ Armstrong, breaking down what would Giannis do in the 70s. I want to play a short video here, and shout out Man Down Sports and my main man down Mel. He actually had a video that I took from a show that he did, which dispels the modern athlete myth. What's the modern athlete myth? The modern athlete myth is that today's athletes are so much better, bigger, faster, stronger, blah, blah, blah. They would all smoke all the great athletes of the past, right? Because of quote unquote evolution. But let's check this out. This is very interesting. All right, here we go.
These two men faced each other today. Who would come out on top? Who's going to win it? It's very close. These are the kind of high-tech runners that Andre DeGrasse usually wears. But to make it a fair race, we're making him replicas of Jesse Owens' shoes.
He's a Canadian track star.
Look at those. Yeah, those are nice. So, how does it feel?
Feels good. Instead of a modern synthetic surface, the track will be hard-packed dirt, like the one in the 1936 Olympics.
Yeah. So there's your 100 meters straight. You can just see the finishing line down there. Now, he didn't have any starting blocks. So
what y'all think go happen?
Fingers down on the line and put your feet where they would go, and then we'll create some holes there, and then that in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good.
The time for Andre to beat is 10.3 seconds.
He look good, don't he? He killing it. He killing it.
So with my hand timing, we've got just dead on 11 seconds. How do you feel?
I don't think I've ever felt so tired. Running 100 meters right now. So,
but it does kind of show that the tracks, the shoes, does make a bit of a difference.
Yeah,
you said it's.
I think it makes a really, really big difference. It was tough. I think this will show a lot. This will show that Jesse Owens has a lot of strength and power.
Wow.
The strength and power.
Look at Jesse Owens, bro.
This equalizer.
Okay, so the reason I brought this up, right? Jesse Owens, I think, ran a 10.3 or a 10.4 in the 1936 Olympics in Berlin. He set the record. He won the gold, blah, blah, blah. I think he won multiple golds in that Olympic Games, right? Basically stood up to the Nazis and disrupted the Führer, Adolf Hitler, his mindset and his foolishness of Aryan superiority athletically and everything else, right? Totally crushed him. So Jesse Owens, the greatest track athlete of that time, right? He runs a 10.3, 10.4. Now, the fastest we have today is obviously the legend Usain Bolt, who ran a 9.58, I want to say in 2009, and that is the fastest ever 100 meters on record, right? Almost a full second faster. But modern training, right? Modern equipment and modern training and modern equipment, and I would always say modern sports medicine and nutrition make all the difference. So that doesn't prove that today's athletes are superior. They just have superior resources at their disposal, right? And so I say all this to say, when guys want to talk about how much better today's athletes are, it's not really true. It's not really true, right? And so that's why I played that video there, just so you guys could get an example, a demonstration of that. Because remember, DeGrasse right there? He is a track star from Canada. He's on their Canadian Olympic team and, probably easily one of the fastest 25 men on earth at the 100 meters. But guess what? When he had to wear the track spikes Jesse Owens was wearing, when he had to run on dirt, no starting blocks, no synthetic surface to give you that little extra bounce, well, all of a sudden, everything got a lot harder. His legs had to push a lot harder, and he only ran 11 seconds when he has run sub 10 multiple times. So just wanted to show you guys that. Now, I know that Bruce is probably saying, what that got to do with anything? It has to do with the faulty premise that just because they're from today, that today's athletes are so superior. All right, so let's go ahead. Let's hear what BJ Armstrong has to say on the Hoops Genius podcast regarding the commentary about Giannis scoring 250 points in an NBA game in the 70s.
Do you believe that Giannis is a player that could play in any era?
Yes, why wouldn't he?
Do you believe that if Giannis Antetokounmpo played in the 1970s, he could score 250 points in a game?
Are we being serious here, or are we just?
Well, this is a quote from LeBron James on the Pat McAfee show. He says, trying to tell me Giannis wouldn't be able to play an NBA game in the 70s? Giannis would have 250 points in a game in the 70s. Obviously, a slight exaggeration. Well, I hope a slight exaggeration. But I'm surprised you didn't see that coming. I'll tee this up from the start of the episode.
Let's put things into context. First of all, if we took how we play today with the equipment and all of the things that we had and just transformed it back into the 70s, you would have a person that would look completely out of place.
So that's one of the big things that I always talk about, right? When we do this comparison of could player A from today play in the 80s, or could player B from the 80s play today, right? A big part of it is this. Are we taking them exactly as they are and just dropping them into that era? Or are we having them come up in that era? You know what I mean? Because I think that definitely plays a different role in terms of what that person would be able to get off in the other era, right? And I always say, because the rules were called more tightly, everything wasn't about offense, it wasn't about spread floors, it's less physical today, blah, 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 that if you took a guy from the 80s, a really good player from the 80s, or a really good player from the 90s, and you brought them forward, they would kill. One of the players I always talk about, Reggie Miller, Glenn Rice, Mitch Richmond, those guys were marksmen, right? Dale Ellis, Ricky Pierce, all those kind of guys. Steph Curry's pops, Del Curry. If you brought them to today and let them shoot as many threes as they want, do you imagine what they would do? Can you imagine what they do? Those guys are all snipers, right? And so if you brought them into the modern era, let them play that way, okay, cool. Now you take the shooters of today and you drop them in the 80s, the 90s, there's no freedom of movement, right? So they're getting chipped as they're running off screens and everything. They're catching elbows, they're catching knees, they're getting bumped with the shoulder. The game is more physical. Guys are hand checking, so on and so forth. Are they doing the same thing that they do today? Probably not, right? Now, if they came up in that era, okay, maybe we got something different. But if you drop them, because that's generally the argument that today's players are so superior, but if you drop them in the eras in the past, I don't believe it would be the same thing. I don't. But let's continue.
Yeah, they put an iPhone out of their pocket and then they'll be like, what the hell is this?
No one would be doing step throughs. Okay. There wouldn't be a such thing as a 5-out offense. There would be the equipment, and put it like this. I can assure you this, just by the equipment alone, he wouldn't be running as fast as he's running now. Okay. There were no Nike sneakers with cushion on the bottom. Okay. The basketball would feel a little different. The travel would be a little different. The food and all of these things would be a little different. There's no training. Look how Giannis has built up his body. Do you think, here's the thing. All of the things that enhance the game today has evolved to give you how it looks today. If I gave Bill Russell and these guys the same training, the same equipment, access to film, and all of these things, the game would have been different. So if you're just telling me I'm just going to allow someone to train in 2025, put them in 1970 and play the way that the game looks today, if that's what you're telling me, okay. I was in the 1970s. Well, that wasn't happening. Okay. Let's get that out. Whatever was said was said. I'm not taking these things out of context. I'm not into shock TV or shock.
I don't know. So they released this clip. I'll just give you the context. I'll give you the context. They released this clip before the full show comes out in a few hours' time from now when we're recording, just for context. I don't know if he's being serious. And I don't know if he's being, obviously he's exaggerating, but I don't know. Sometimes I think he really wants to say that he would score 250 points in the series, but he don't want to say that. So he's going to say Giannis would do it instead. That's how I'm hearing it. He wants to really.
I saw Giannis in Greece. I saw Giannis as a young player when he came here, and I've given him credit for what he's done, how he transformed his mindset.
It's an
how
amazing
he
story.
worked on his game, how he continues to add new things to his game. More importantly, you can see physically what he did to his body to be able to play the level of physicality, and how he's been able to maintain and shoulder the responsibility. Now, remember, Mo, if you were playing in the 1970s, there was no such thing as ISO basketball. Okay. There was no such thing as 5-out offense.
This is what I was going to say. The spacing that Brook Lopez affords for Giannis to do what he wants. First of all, if Giannis played in the 70s, he'd be a center. He wouldn't be able to be the power forward that he is like this, the way that he plays. And then second of all...
And we saw Giannis in the 70s. His name was Wilt Chamberlain. We saw him. This is what's amazing to me, is everyone thinks that the world just started. We saw him in the 70s. His name was Wilt Chamberlain.
And the crazy thing is that was Wilt Chamberlain on the decline, right? He was still averaging, 20 and 18 and 18, because obviously he was on a team that had better scorers with Jerry West, etc. But yeah, that was Wilt Chamberlain on the downturn. Giannis, even at his peak, has never been Wilt Chamberlain. But to that point, man, a lot of credit that, like BJ Armstrong said, a lot of credit to Giannis for building his body. But again, man, it's just the point of the ridiculousness that LeBron would say something like that. Obviously, again, we know he couldn't possibly have meant 250 points in a game, but it's still ridiculous that you would be so disrespectful to make a comment like that.
That's what we saw. What's the difference?
Well, I have a point to make that I think people won't like. The way the game was officiated, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, the way the game was officiated back then, I think Giannis would get called for a whole lot of travels and a whole lot of carrying.
So remember I said that, right? He would have a hard time even staying on the floor if you were to take him today and drop him back then, because first of all, they probably wouldn't even let him dribble that much. They'd tell him, go get on the block and post up, right? And that's not the strength of Giannis's game. But even in the event they did let him dribble, he does carry and he does travel a lot, just like most of these guys today, So
if he played his style of basketball in the 1970s.
Mo, this is the problem. Sports is only played now.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. You can't put a guy
trying to put someone in a different timeline with different rules. It's not happening. These are conversations that are just fun to have. You put a clip and then you put it here and then everyone interject. Okay, I'm not going for that. Whatever was said, it was said. I lived in the 70s. I lived there. My parents once or twice a year would take me to Cobo Hall in Detroit, Michigan to watch an NBA game. I saw an NBA game as a kid in the 70s. I can remember my mom and dad once a year we'd save up they would save up to take me to a game at Cobo Hall in Detroit. I was there. Some of us are qualified to make that call. We were there. True. I was a kid. I remember going there. I remember going there when I was like 10, 11, 12 years old in the late 70s. I remember taking my dad would take us to a game, whatever, once or twice a year. I remember watching those games. No. Okay. Now, do I think he would be a really good player? Yes, I do. You know why I think he'd be a really good player? Because when you are an elite talent, you it doesn't matter what era you play in. Do I think he would compete? Yes. Do I think the way that they play, knowing very well that a 7-foot power forward guy dribbling the basketball in that era, that wasn't happening, Mo. Okay. Do I think if you put a lot of these players in that era with their style, thinking that they're going to shoot threes? No, there were no threes. And that guys are just going to be shooting fadeaway jump shots? No, not happening. That's not how the game was played. That's not how the game was taught. Those weren't the offenses systems that they were accustomed to playing with at that particular time.
So again, great commentary by BJ Armstrong as usual. But yeah, so I like the fact that he didn't necessarily get hung up the way I did in terms of, LeBron's nonsense and making that disrespectful statement. And he just kept it a buck about what could have happened, what would have happened, and, the differences that allow a lot of the players to do some of the things that they are doing today. So, I just wanted to get that one in as well. And I wanted to, share my thoughts on it. But yeah, that's about it, man. I'm going to leave it right there, guys. I really appreciate you being patient with me. I appreciate you being members of the channel, but I definitely wanted to come in here and I wanted to give you this, give you this triple right here and share with you the different thoughts I have on what's going on and some of the things that are being said. And I enjoyed doing this one. And again, Bruce, I'm waiting for your commentary in the comments section. Remember, I want your commentary on this. I want you to tell me even one thing I said that was a lie. Don't move the goalpost. Don't come up with something else. Tell me what I or Rick Bucher said that was untrue. Just answer my questions, man. That's all I want. And of course, anyone else is anyone else can answer and leave whatever comments you like. But thanks so much for being members, guys. Appreciate your patience once more. And we out. Peace.